All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on to today's product connection call. Appreciate those of you that are able to make it today. I'm calling kind of a last second audible here. We're going to be working with the spray table today, and naturally when you go to do presentations, things don't always work the way you want. So we'll talk about ExactApply. The main thing I want to talk about today is really getting into display setup, how it corresponds to the nozzles, and with the ExactApply system, kind of all the different variables that we need to keep in mind to make sure that that machine is set up and ready to go to the field ultimately. So want to recap a couple things real quick before we get into the ExactApply display screens. These are all things we talked about last week, but just want to kind of remind you of a few things. ExactApply has 4 key operation modes. There's an auto select A/B, which is a conventional spraying. The sprayer automatically selects the nozzle based on rate, the speed, and also targeted pressures. There's turn compensation, which can be on any of the pulsing modes. So when we go around corners, the inside can slow down or even shut off with section control, and the outside can increase the rate so that it actually matches the ground speed. Similar technology of what we've got in ExactEmerge planners. So nothing new there, but again, just the other application of it on the sprayer side. Obviously, individual nozzle control, having sections down to the individual nozzle. Now, to get down to this level of accuracy, Gen 4 displays really help with that. We can have as many sections as a sprayer nozzle number has that's available today. So whether that's 96 or more nozzles, or individual section size is down to the spray pattern width of that nozzle. And then of course the pulse width modulation, the PWM spray pattern, being able to control that flow, which is really where the juice, so to speak, is where that magic all kind of happens in ExactApply. The modes we'll talk about again today, I'm just recapping our last session. We talked in more detail, but we've got a combined mode and a separated mode, and it all depends on the orientation of the nozzle body. So that nozzle body is going to really be affected based on how we have it configured. And we'll get into the display that's going to kind of talk about the individual options. So let's go ahead. I'm going to switch the screens here so you can see my my desktop, and then we'll talk about kind of the different menus and screens associated with ExactApply. So first off, I am dealing with the simulator online here, so some things are going to run just a little bit slower than we'd like. Feel free to ask questions as we go. Also want to just make sure you guys get as much as possible today out of our session. So when we talk about ExactApply, we have some different home screens we can set up. There's a lot of different ways that we can show information to a grower, ultimately letting them have the right information at their fingertips. So on our displays, this is one of these screens that comes from the factory, one of the base home screens that's available. When we look at the sprayer home screen, a couple key things that we look at. First off, the top center of the screen, that's going to be focused on the spray system. The bottom part has the map. And just like in a tractor or anything else running a Gen 4 display, those areas of the screen, if you want more information or you want a larger map in this case, click on it and you'll be able to kind of dive deeper into that information. When we talk about, I'll start with sprayers first, and then we'll dive into sprayers that have ExactApply here in a little bit. When we look at sprayers themselves, we focus kind of on this area here. Now, the other thing I want to mention is all of the different places we can press on this part of the screen, we can also access from the menu in the bottom right-hand corner. So let's go ahead and look at the menu side first. Just like every other application with the Gen 4, we've got machine settings, the applications, which are typically more of your intangible precision ag things, right? Your section control, your map settings, and so forth. And then system, which is specifically the system on the Gen 4 itself. So screen brightness, volume, date and time, file management, and those things, which that should be a review if you've been around a Gen 4 monitor before. So we're going to focus on machine settings, and this changes based on the machine you're in. and the options that that machine is configured with. So this one, we've got auto prime. Now, Gen 4, I should say 4 series sprayers have the option of having a prime and a boom air purge, and they're both located under the same menu. We've got boom and nozzles, calibration procedures, and then some other buttons that are common to other platforms between the controls and the engine. We also have headland management system, or HMS, that we'll talk about. The HVAC maintenance, then there's nozzle calculator, rinse system, spray system, and tank system, and then also tread adjust if the machine is equipped with tread. Okay, so when we look at back at our home screen, if we look at our kind of our main spray screen, we'll kind of get to those same icons that we just talked about. So top center here would be our tank system. So if we click on there, that's going to bring me into that same menu, that same icon we saw in our menu. Now this also is going to be where, depending on the features on the sprayer, we're going to see different icons. So there's tank fill presets. So if I have a 1,200 gallon sprayer in this case, and I go to do a full refill, I can have this set up to have 1,200 gallons, or a lot of guys do like 1,230 or 1,250, what the machine actually holds. When I do a refill, I can hit the button there. It'll give me the full refill and go from there. Or if I batch it and I only have a half load, I can select my preset. I can also adjust that number by clicking there, and then press my fill button, and it'll adjust based on what I tell it. Now, if you have a sprayer that has automated solution command, so the keypad on the side and the valves instead of, or the electric valves instead of the manual valves on the left side of the machine, there is also a target here. Now, this is not the target fill. This is actually just showing you how many gallons are in the tank based on the float that's inside the solution tank. So it's an actual readout based on that float in the tank. So because it's a float, we obviously want to make sure the sprayer is on nice, level, even ground before we rely on the information it puts out. But it does give us a good indication of gallons in the sprayer. Now, this because of how this is set up, this sensor does reset every time we refill the sprayer all the way full, and it kind of self-calibrates. So they do base it on 1,200 gallons. If the tank can hold 1,235 or 1,240, there will be just a slight offset there, but to the side that there will be a little bit left over. Does not affect application rate. It's just what it's telling you in the gallons countdown. Okay, we've got a low tank alarm in here as well. We can select that on and off. If I want it to warn me when I've got 200 gallons left, a lot of people like to have it so if there's a pass, or I should say a round left, if you've got a square field, that they know if they should stop before they start their next pass or not. Also, with auto solution command, when we talk about agitation, there is an auto off feature. Again, you have to have automated solution command. Auto off uses the tank level sensor and can automatically shut off the agitation based on how many gallons left that we tell it. So if I want to shut off my agitation with 150 gallons remaining, with this feature turned on, that's going to automatically shut that down. I don't have to shut it off manually. Customer might want this because if they've got a product that has tendency to foam, the more aggressive you are, the more foaming might happen. So when you get lower down in the tank, you can introduce air and actually start creating some bubbles and foaming action you don't want. You can also adjust the levels of aggressiveness here for the agitation as well. And it's not the only place to do that, but one place you can see that. I won't go through every single screen talking about sprayers, but just kind of want to give an overview of some of those options. Okay, back on our home screen here, if I click in the middle of the screen, this is going to take me to boom sections. Now, because we have an ExactApply sprayer, ExactApply sprayers don't have section valves out on the boom. Now, section valves are essentially operating as the individual nozzles with ExactApply, so I can customize how many sections my machine has. This one's currently set up where it's got 11 sections, I believe, or 13 sections, excuse me, and we can customize that if I want 196, or I should say 96, or 2 sections or 3 sections. You can all customize all of that. But by default, it has it set up so that you have a section group similar to a conventional sprayer, but you can modify where that section break is. So if you got a guy that wants to spray with the outer booms folded in, so he wants to spray at 60 or 66 feet or 72 feet, you can customize that in the sections, which is the nice part about ExactApply, that you can get it down to the nozzle level of where you want that section break to be. So we set up how many nozzles are in each section here and the spacing of the nozzles. So these are all 15-inch. There's a 132-foot sprayer, for instance, and you will notice the width is a little bit wider than the actual physical width of the boom because it's also counting the overlap or the spray pattern width of the machine. So there's an extra 15-ish inches in that calculation to compensate for the overall spray pattern. Okay, so that's the boom section part. Down here at the bottom of the screen, we've got our target rates. Now we can set up the target rate 1, 2, and 3 with our selected gallons. If I want to operate in manual pressure or operate with a variable rate prescription, we can do that with all of these different selections. Okay, there is also buttons on the side console that allow us to select those as well. So if I look at my armrest here on the right-hand side, here you'll see the manual pressure, target rate 1, 2, and 3. That corresponds to the same target rates there on the center of the screen as well. Okay, middle of the screen here, you're going to notice there is the target presets again. We do also have minimum pressure and spray off pressure. So the minimum pressure is going to be the minimum pressure the sprayer maintains while applying. Nice part about ExactApply, depending on the nozzles you have set up, a lot of times we can get that minimum pressure down to 12, 13 PSI, whereas a standard sprayer, we typically run above 15 pounds of pressure to maintain fan pattern. Just one of the advantages of letting out bursts of product instead of a constant flow. Then also spray off pressure, the standard is 40 PSI. With ExactApply, seeing as we're able to control the pressure coming out at the tips, I typically like to have the spray off pressure slightly higher than our target pressure when we're applying in the field. And the reason for that, spray off pressure is the pressure that the sprayer is going to try and maintain while the master switch is off. So we're not applying, you get to the headlamps, you hit your master off. That is going to be the pressure that we're going to be targeting when we're off, essentially. So when we hit the master on, if our spray off pressure is slightly above our application pressure, it can go from a little higher pressure and settle down right into the actual spray pressure rather than basically dipping below what you want. The other one I want to point out here, really important with ExactApply, and Jeff Pravacek mentioned it last time, as far as taking the nozzle bodies apart, we want to make sure we depressurize the boom before we take any pieces off. So this pressure relief option, I like to have that on. Nothing happens when I toggle this switch here. So to relieve pressure on the boom, what I do is make sure this option is turned on. Then on the side console on my machine, I make sure my solution pump is turned off. Then I go onto my hydro handle and hit my master switch on, the yellow button here. So with the solution pump on, I hit my master switch, and then it'll say boom relief active. And it's going to just open up the valves on the ExactApply nozzles without actually running any product through the solution pump. So it just basically reduces the pressure in the boom itself. So that's a safe way to depressurize the boom so you don't get an unwanted face full of product when you need to go work on the nozzle bodies. Okay, so that's essentially that part of the screen there. There are flow rate modes. We'll address those in some future spray training, but just kind of want to point those parts out. Okay, so those are the ones you can adjust from kind of your home screen. Now let's talk a little bit about ExactApply specifically. So I'm going to go ahead and also kick my camera on here, just so you can, I like talking with my hands, so I have to apologize for that. Let's see. All right, so a couple things on the ExactApply side of things here. When we go into set up our nozzle bodies, we first need to understand how our nozzle bodies are set up on the sprayer itself. And we first want to look at what position is in the leading edge. Is it nozzle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? And again, that's really important just based on how the configurations are set up with the combined mode or the separated mode. Now remember, when we do separated mode, nozzle 1, 2, or 3 needs to be on the leading edge of the spray boom. Combined mode takes the A and the B PWM and combines them into one nozzle. So in this case, I've got number 6 in front, so I'm going to be running in combined mode, which allows for 30 Hz pulsing. So if we want to make that match our sprayer, we're going to go ahead and go down into Menu, and Boom and Nozzles is where our ExactApply setup is going to be housed. Now there's another way you can get to it. The bottom of Gen 4 screens have this nice navigation bar that sits directly below the monitor. And you'll notice the icons match what's on the bottom bar. So Boom and Nozzles is also a quick key down on the bottom of the screen as well. That's going to take us into the same place as if I hit it on the menu itself. So the ExactApply setup we want to talk about. This is in the same place as our boom track. So our boom track is going to be our boom height control. And the ExactApply is going to be over here to the left-hand side, right in the middle of the screen. So a couple things we look at. We can go into the ExactApply mode here. There's also some settings in the advanced settings up here that I want to make sure we look at as well. So in the advanced settings, it's got the boom track set up. I'm going to just scroll and go down below that to show you where we enter in our total boom settings, our total boom sections. Here's where we can modify if I want 3 sections or if I want 13 or I want 96. You can enter in your total boom sections here. Then that section setup takes you to the same place where we were looking before, where it had the section check marks of which sections are on and which sections are turned off. Scrolling down here towards the bottom of the page, there's a spot where turn compensation is activated. It is on by default. Usually recommend leaving it on. Again, you have to be on a pulsing mode in order for turn compensation to be active. And just above that, this is where we set up our boost nozzles. So if we want a couple nozzles to put out a little more product, this is where we enter them in. So we enter the nozzle position number. Say I want nozzle, let's go 52. And it'll allow the one next to it. Again, I'm not pulsing right now, so it's not going to let me select them. But how much more of the rate do we want to put down? 5% over our 10 gallons an acre, 20 gallons an acre, what you're putting down. So we'll compensate on those nozzles. Again, reason for that, if they're positioned either on the fence line or behind the tires, they might need to penetrate either a deeper canopy of weeds or where dust is getting kicked up off of the wheels. So the boost allows us to just give a little more shot of product where we need it. And then there are also the lighting options for ExactApply here lower on the same advanced screen as well. Okay, so back out here on the main boom and nozzles page, we're going to go underneath the ExactApply configuration to talk about how we set this part up. Now, if the wiring is all good and the machine knows all of its nozzles are in the right positions, you're going to see a green OK light here. If it's seeing faults, there's going to show errors there. That status will let you click into it, and it's going to show you a list of your sections and the individual turret numbers, and it'll tell you if there's an error. What's nice is if it's got, say, a sticky poppet in one of our solenoids on the side here, we can hit this light faulted turrets on the bottom, and it's going to take the LED on the bottom and pulse it. So if I have my boom up high enough, I can kind of see it from eye level. You can look down the boom left or right, not have to remember the nozzle position number, and see where that faulty turret is. Again, depressurize the boom like we talked. You go out to that nozzle, take it apart as needed, and fix it. And then barring issues there, you can take this nozzle body off, maybe swap it with another, restart the machine. It'll re-index the nozzles and see if the status goes away or it continues to have an issue. And then you can dive into diagnosing any wiring issues if you need. So that's kind of where it gets to be like a customer calls a salesman having issues with it. General things we can try. We can swap nozzle bodies, cycle power, see if it changed. If it didn't, then maybe we need to get the shop involved. Or if they call the shop, those are things you can recommend as well. Okay, so our setup on the nozzle positions is also extremely important. So active nozzles, you'll see in this section of the screen, we've got manual setup and auto mode setup. The auto mode setup is just going to be for our auto select AB. So this is going to show the nozzles I currently have selected, which we'll get to in 1 second. Is it enabled? So my starting tip, the minimum and maximum pressure that I'm going to allow that to go. Then it's going to switch to the second tip, the min and max pressure I want that to go, and then onto the third one. So you see I'm on a simulator here, so I apologize, that's bouncing on and off. But then it shows you a rate chart down at the bottom of, is this setup actually able to achieve and have overlapping pressures from nozzle 1 to nozzle 2. So that's the AB auto mode setup. We can get really deep into that, but if anybody has any specific questions, don't hesitate to give me a shout and we can talk through specific scenarios. Okay, so nozzle turret setup. So here we're in manual setup. This is where all of our A or B, combined AB is all going to be set up at. You'll notice we've got 6 nozzle positions, so this is going to be reflecting the nozzle turret itself. So the front, what's on the leading edge of the sprayer, and right now it's showing nozzle position 1. Now I mentioned I've got nozzle position 6 on the leading edge. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this on the screen, oops, so that number 6 is in the same position. I apologize for those windows here. You'll notice that it's got the A pulsar, the A solenoid, and the B solenoid here, and they are both connecting up to the nozzle in the front. Now if I go back and show you how nozzle 1 in front looks, A is going to 1, and B, notice, is connected to 2. Now it's grayed out because we're showing A only in our spray mode. If I go B only, you notice that that connects in green, and we'd only be spraying on the B nozzle at that point. If I want to go A plus B, there you'll notice it's got green connecting the front and the rear nozzle. Both of those nozzles at this point are going to apply at the same time. Now in my case where I've got the number 6 nozzle in front, there it's going to change. Sorry, the simulator is just being a little funny. All right, I'm going to use 5 for an instance here because this is actually working. So when we go here, we've got 5 in the front. The A and the B are both connecting to one individual nozzle. At this point, they're both going to be applying out of that singular nozzle, which is what gets me up to that 30 hertz high rate pulsing. So we want to make sure our nozzle size is correct. Because of the way ExactApply is set up, it needs to know the size of nozzle body that it's outputting product to, so that it can help control the flow properly. If you don't have this set up correctly or your positions are wrong, that is going to cause issues. So make sure we get these set up the proper way. So we go ahead and we can click on the nozzle. This is where we go in and set the specific nozzle size. Now, when we look at our nozzle bodies, they're all by kind of gallon per minute at 40 psi flow. I currently have an 08 in this leading position, so I'm going to select 08. That's going to change that nozzle. On the back of this one, I currently don't have anything, so I'm going to go ahead and blank that out to make sure that this matches what I physically have on my machine, which is going to help, again, operate it correctly and then make sure that it's going to apply at the right rates when it needs to. Last major thing we look at on this screen then is the valve pulsing mode on the right-hand side. Now, early versions of ExactApply had a software glitch that occasionally the valve pulsing would turn off by itself. That has been fixed in newer software versions, but again, there are plenty of machines out there that may not have gotten that software update. So just be aware, this is where we can go in between pulsing or spraying conventionally. So if for some reason the sprayer isn't pulsing when it's supposed to be, this is the first place I recommend you go in, check to make sure the valve pulsing is turned on before digging into checking wire connectors and things like that. So valve pulsing mode, when it's off, it's going to be spraying in a conventional mode. If it's in fixed, we can set the duty cycle of the nozzle. Now this is really nice for sitting up at the yard and just making the poppets move. So think about diagnosing the entire boom, or if a guy is going to be bringing it out of winter storage. As long as you've got product in there and it's not running dry, you can run the nozzle flow from basically 0 up to 100%, which locks them open. And so you can run them up and down to kind of make sure they're exercised, lubricated up for going into season. So put it in manual pressure, run it in a fixed pulsing mode is a nice way to just make sure everything's working. When you're in the field, there really is no reason to use the fixed pulsing mode. Now there is also auto pulsing mode. This is the one we typically will run in when we are operating the machine out in the field and want the pressure to take over and the nozzle pulses to take over. So with that in auto mode, then we're able to control our rates and control the pressure automatically. The sprayer is going to automatically adjust how fast it pulses based on what it needs. So I'm going to also show you here on the armrest. If we look at the armrest, again, over here on the right-hand side, this is going to have a couple different options as well. So if I walk down the buttons here, we've got our solution pump on, our agitation, the target rates like we talked about. There's fence row nozzles. So if I want to turn my fence row left or right on, it's right here. And then this group of 4 buttons is for the ExactApply system. So if I'm controlling pressure while spraying, the top left of these 4 is going to be lit up. If I am in auto select AB, which again is a conventional spray mode, the top right is going to be lit. And then if I want to select only the A nozzle or only the B nozzle, or if they're both on, they'll both be lit up at the same time. That all is going to show on the armrest here. So if you want to manually select the nozzles, you can do it over here. Don't have to come all the way through to this menu that we've been talking about. But the other part that's nice, if I have 2 target pressures set up with ExactApply, say like a 40 PSI and a 30 PSI, so I want to lower my pressure when I go around the neighbor's field, or if I've got neighboring crop on the dryland part of pivot irrigation or whatever the situation, I can press this target button and that's automatically going to change the target pressure. Now you have 2 presets you can toggle between, but this is where it allows a quick toggle. Do recommend that customers put it on a home screen so you can see it, because it won't drop a window shade down when you change target pressure. So another place we can see that, if we look at the nozzle turret setup, I'm going to close this and go back to our ExactApply kind of manual setup screen. Every time you rotate the nozzles, it will just give you a little warning that say, hey, you changed the nozzles on the screen. Did you actually change them out on the boom? Or do they match is really what it's saying. So go ahead and hit OK. Then you'll see this target nozzle pressure here on the right-hand side of the screen. So in my case, I want the one pressure to be at 40. Maybe the other one will be at 30 PSI. So I go ahead and enter those. Now I can toggle my pressure here and toggle to that lower pressure, or I can also select the button on the armrest side as well, and notice that toggled between those. So just gives you a couple different ways that you can operate that at. Okay, so from there, our ExactApply system is essentially set up. There are a couple other kind of home screens that we like to look at that really help the operator see what they need to. So a couple things here. This is another one that's set up. You can customize these however, seeing as it's ExactApply. But you can have a button up here where I can select between the A or the B or both based on the nozzle that it shows there. And this is also another place where that allows me to toggle between my set pressures, and I can manually bump it up or bump it down from this screen rather than digging through the menus. So that's one nice option. The other one that we really recommend is the section flow. And notice that'll kick me over to there, but section flow is going to be the percentage of duty cycle that the nozzles are running at. Again, we size the nozzles between 25 and 75% of duty cycle to make sure we have rooms on the upper and lower end to compensate for turn compensation. So we can watch here that when you go around curves, you're going to see kind of an exponential or decentralized or a decelerating type of chart, depending on which way the sprayer is turning. And it's left to right, just like the spray boom is. So you can see what percentage of duty cycle the sprayer is. So it also is really nice. You can see if you're getting close to 100% duty cycle, you're either running too fast or you're just pushing the size of nozzles you have maybe a little too far. And if you're always up in that area, it might be time to look at a larger size tip, again, depending on the rate and speed that you're going. And the same way also, if they're always really low, you see some nozzles dripping here and there, good indication that we're maybe oversized. We should look at some smaller nozzles. Or if you're running in A plus B mode, maybe we can drop a nozzle and just go A only, and then kind of capture the opportunity of running one individual nozzle without having to go out and actually switch them. So gives us some good flexibility there. In terms of documentation, no change versus what you'd usually have in a typical sprayer. So setup button gives you product name, there's single product or tank mix. That is going to show the same exact screen, whether it's an ExactApply sprayer or not. So again, just gives you kind of a little look at that setup. So I'll take a breath. Does anybody have any questions or things they want to see on the display itself before I show you one kind of last thing? Okay, you guys are talkative, no problem. So a couple other things that I just want to mention. I did talk about it in a different session, or actually the last session, and talk about it a lot in the classes that I've done with ExactApply. There is an ExactApply nozzle control maintenance kit that is available. Now this kit does come with every new sprayer, and it does have a few additional kind of features in it that I want to talk about. So I'm going to bring the camera around here and kind of lay it out on the table quick so you can kind of see some of the different components that go along with it. Okay, so I did mention a lot of these before, but there is the torque wrench. So it's a 17 millimeter that does click as I'm taking my nozzle bodies apart. And there is also the spare poppets, a stem holding tool, additional kind of locking rings, a cleaning brush, an O-ring pick, and then some additional kind of zip ties and some extra pieces there. So this gives you some additional components that allow a customer kind of not to be out in the woods, so to speak, if they need to do a repair. So if I take a nozzle body apart again, like we did before, the kind of instructional way that Deere recommends we do it, we take our kind of base plate. It's keyed on the bottom, so it's going to hold that nozzle in place. Again, we don't want to use pliers on this. Using our 17 millimeter torque wrench, I can loosen that up and get to my components inside. Same way also, when I go to tighten it up, if you're out in the field, you don't have these pieces, you know, this one's kind of nice because it holds it in place. Don't use again, a vice grip or anything on the stem here. You can finger tighten them if you really need to. The other thing that's nice, again, on the bottom of the solenoid is it's actually keyed as well, so you can use that as another option for torquing these. Okay, but I go ahead, I take my 17 millimeter torque wrench, let it click, and that is now spec'd the way it should be. The other thing I can do here is it does have a cleaning brush along with the kit. So we think about our end of year maintenance. This is a good place that if we have a poppet or a solenoid that's stuck, we can take our brush in there and give it a good clean out, and then also make sure there's no scoring in here. This shouldn't move either, but just to make sure if any debris does get in there that we make sure we get it kind of cleaned out. So just another look. Once I had the toolkit here, I wanted to show you guys so that you had the opportunity to kind of see what all that kit came with. And we can order the pieces and get that separately as well. But again, each new machine with ExactApply does come with this kit as well. So just a couple of good things there to be aware of. All right, with that, that is kind of all the content that I've got for today. Does anybody have any additional questions before we kind of wrap up for the day? All right. So with that, we will be meeting again up next week. I'll have a topic I'll send out later in the week. Again, there are a lot of resources out there with ExactApply, everything from walk around guides, sales and demo materials, selecting nozzles, the PWM nozzle charts are out there as well. And by all means, feel free, don't hesitate. Feel free to give me a call if you've got any questions as well. So with that, we'll wrap up for today. Appreciate everybody's time on the phone today.